Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to my wife's channel. Not mine, it's my wife's channel. And with me today, I've got a good friend of mine. He's a brother. He's a father. He's everything. He's a good friend of mine. His name is Kevin Jacobs. We here. It's Youth Month, but it's also Father's Day soon. So we just want to be honoring fathers that are really doing amazing things, and and just really discuss a few topics about fatherhood and many things around fatherhood. He forms part of an organization which is called The World Needs a Father. They normally run some series, to fathers, most especially men, doing a dad's talk, and they also do ones. I know the organization also does one for women also, and ladies also, and mothers and all of that. So yeah, it's Kevin Jacobs. He's gonna be talking out with us, just sharing a few things, from his experience, from his journey, and also just giving us some guidance and pointers, on certain aspects of fatherhood. So Kev, take it away. Take it away.
All right. Good morning, everybody. It's nice to be here. That's why a topic that's very close to my heart is fatherlessness. As you said, I am a father. I'm also a grandfather. But first of all, I am a son first, a son of my Father in heaven. And during my life's journey, I've been through a lot. I've seen a lot. I was involved in a lot, and had some challenges. And those challenges took me back to one specific point in my life where I needed to ask the question, who is Kevin Jacobs? Who makes Kevin Jacobs tick? And I was fortunate enough to become part of a family called The World Needs a Father, where certain aspects were basically answered to me. Challenges I had, experiences that I had were answered, and I could relate to a lot of the topics that were discussed. And after doing that, starting to walk with men to guide me and to teach me more, I came to discover that most of our problems currently in society can be related to fatherlessness. If you just look at the suicide rate in South Africa, more than 70% of that contributes to a person that comes from a fatherless home. About 70% of young men that's in a youth center belongs to a fatherless home. Most of the crime that gets committed, about 70% of the men involved in crime comes from a fatherless home, and that made me think a lot. And me personally, I used to be a police officer. So I grew up in a small town called Oudtshoorn, and I was raised with my mom and dad present in the home, but I like to call the fact that my father were present but yet he was absent, meaning that although my mom and dad were married and I grew up with them, all the emotional affirmation, the identity confirmation that I needed from my dad, I never received. And I never realized that actually makes a huge impact on you as an adult. Because at a certain stage in my life, I got married and I thought I knew what it meant to be a man or a husband. But yet there is something that I never got from my father. So I was actually a boy, but a man, but a boy. I didn't know what was expected of me, besides what I saw other men doing. And there was this stereotype of what a man should do.
And it's interesting, Kev, that you've mentioned that, because normally when we talk of fatherlessness, they think there's no father in the home, or but sometimes also the point that you're driving, you can also have a father in a home, who's there but not there.
Exactly.
And it's interesting that you also experience the same in your generation, and I can relate to that quite a lot because, I identify with that sort of situation in how I grew up. I also grew up with both parents, both mother and father, loving family, but in terms of having that good affirmation and that support, from a father emotionally as a boy, having those, those dad and father and son talks, those things that we never had, he was
Yes.
there, and, with good intentions, I agree, these things go generationally. He might not have received those things, but, it carries on and the cycles carries on, and, until you get to a position where you can say, no more, I'm breaking this up. So I just thought it's interesting. So in terms of, maybe share with us in terms of your sort of journey, in terms of when you finally got the realization of this sort of element and how you went about in terms of breaking it up and making sure it doesn't happen. It stops now. It doesn't carry on with your children and their children.
All right. So yes, what I need to say is that a father calls up the identity in his child, and that's a very important aspect, because you would find yourself in a position where you would try and find your identity at all the wrong places, from all the wrong people, and out there is people that is willing to help you in that, but it's for all the wrong reasons.
So social media,
yes,
being part of a gang, belonging, friends, certain friends to affirm you, to show you the way. So I like what you're saying, there's always people, if you're a father or you're not willing to play that role, there's somebody, whether it's television, media, whatever it is, somebody's always there wanting to be, but it might not be for the right reasons.
It might not be for the right reasons. So that being said, Zoe, my father did the best in his ability. He was a loving father. He would provide for the family. My dad was a postman, and he would go out to work early in the morning and he would come back late at home. So he was a very good provider for the family. But as a boy, I needed more than that. I needed my dad to tell me, who am I? What am I supposed to be? And that made a huge impact on my identity. I was the shy one, always in the background. I didn't want to be up in front, in everybody's space. And I joined the police. And at a very young age, I was 20 years old when I joined the police. And I thought, I will become a man in the police. I was very much mistaken, because I instantly became an enforcer of law, where I would walk into other people's homes, arrest men who would abuse their wives, but yet I was broken on the inside. I would arrest people for drunkenness, but yet I had a problem with alcohol at the end of the day, because I was basically abusing alcohol because I was trying to numb this emptiness on the inside of me. And I carried on like that for most of my life.
So you always sort of, because of that sort of, call it the father wound.
Yes.
One always is going about, there's a wound, there's a void,
Yes.
whether you try and find it in certain places, whether it's alcohol, women, men, whatever. And I like the point that you said also, because, like I can relate to that with my own father. Very, very great man, very, very great man,
Yes.
loving, providing, taking care of the families, always there. Married to one wife, so it was a very, and when we talk, and this is why I want us just also with this thing that, when you talk also of fatherlessness and the father not being there, and not a father not fulfilling the roles that he's supposed to do, as you said, the father is supposed to be calling out their children, affirming them, doing all these things, you might have many fathers, and I think many of the guys that I grew up also around, our fathers sort of, they hanged around too much, and we sort of had similar challenges when it comes to fatherhood. All of us, as we've grown up, we had the same challenges, But being that said, I think they did what they could and what they knew how. It's not a matter that I don't think they didn't give us that affirmation on purpose, or they didn't do these things. I think it's more, maybe it's generational, how they grew up and all these things.
Yes.
So carry on, Kevin. So you worked arresting people and everything?
Yes, I was arresting people. I was a very good cop. I was very good at doing my work. Yet when I got home, I was broken. And that brokenness, I had to feed. And the only way of escape for me were alcoholism. I would jump into alcohol whenever I had the time. But when I was at work, I was firm, I was proper. I was the best that you could get. I was fearless. I didn't fear to die doing my work. But yet at home I was broken. There was this emptiness, this void that need to be filled. And that being said, being married then adds pressure to it. Not knowing who you are as a man, not getting what you needed from
and now
your
you
dad.
also have to be the father now.
Yes.
Now the certain things, that wound that you still have, those things you don't know how to. Nobody else, because remember, part of the father is to say, this is how you become a husband, Kevin. This is how you treat your wife. This is how, so now not having that, now you have to now perform the role.
Exactly.
And I agree with you, it does actually add pressure, absolutely. Yeah.
And the best I could do were provide for the family, because that is what I saw my daddy doing. Provide for my family, and I was so mistaken, and I got to a stage in my life where everything crumbled. And I joined this organization, The World Needs a Father. Certain things were taught to me, and I had to go back to my father, because at a stage I started hating my dad, hating him for what I didn't get from him. I even at a stage said I never want to be like him. And saying those words, today I realize in that words there's a lot of pride, number one, and number two, I became that person. The person I said I do not want to be, I actually became that person.
Yes.
And I had to go back to my dad because of this, the world needs a father. And I had a conversation with my dad where I had an open discussion with him, and I said, listen, Dad, this is what's happening in my life, and I blame you for not giving me what I needed as a boy, and because of that I blame you for all my failures and stuff. And my dad started crying. In that moment he told me that basically what I wanted from him, he himself didn't know what it is. Because as a youngster at the age of 14, he was told by his father to leave school and start working to provide for the rest of the family. So I was actually hating a man, my own dad, for not giving me what I needed, but yet he even didn't have it. And it took me a lot of years, because I was already 40 years old when this happened. So for most of my life I hated my dad, not knowing that he was really trying his best at something what he also didn't know.
Yes, hence why I said earlier on, these things, we want to have this anger and blame our dad. Meanwhile, if you look at them, they were also broken. They didn't have, if you sit down, obviously the challenge with, I think, that generation, maybe they didn't talk much, they didn't talk. So you only after you engage with them, you started talking, which is beautiful, because that's also something I had to realize, also with my father, and I had to have grace on him, because I think for me, being the more person who was born again Christian, who now understood the love of God, I understood grace, I understood being forgiven, because I'm also not perfect, and my flaws keep me in check to say, listen, what gives you the right to throw a stone in your father's
Yes.
floors or whatever. So to have that grace and actually have that forgiveness, which you know, to have that thing, I think also I can relate to that, which was the most beautiful thing, because I think once you get to that point of understanding the other person's side as your father, also you have much more grace, and now understanding, you know, the anger goes away. You think you think
Yes.
much more clearer now of the situation. Now, I mean, imagine I'm 13, also yet to go and provide for his family, and then have a family. Then
Yes.
it becomes, now it goes back now, Kev. You know, I know this is sort of a big topic. You know, we'll take more and see if we come back and do a couple of more sessions. But it goes back to what I was saying of this generational, because for me, I always see, you know, we think of things, but you see it's a pattern.
Yeah.
So maybe just to look at currently now, having gone through that with your dad, is that, you know, how have you now gone through and done it differently now with your family? Maybe take us through that
Yes.
journey. And also, obviously, it's a journey, you know, and also it will help us also, and other men that are watching there, that are maybe finding themselves at, you know, at that position where,
same
you know,
position.
maybe me or you used to be,
Yeah.
in terms of that, to say, now listen, here's the way forward. This is what I'm doing now as a dad. I've got
Yeah.
children. This is what I'm doing to help that, you know.
Yes.
So yeah, maybe share with that.
All right. Firstly, it started right there where I had the conversation with my dad. I had to apologize and ask for forgiveness. And after that, I had to forgive myself for believing a lie all these years. And immediately after that, I had to start surrounding myself with men. Men who would speak into my life. Men who would look me in the face and tell me, but Kevin, you're wrong. Or Kevin, the way you're thinking at this moment, it's not right.
So you are accountable people that hold you
Yes.
accountable, not
Yes.
people just say yes, pass, yes, Kevin, you know, that
Yes.
make you feel good. Okay.
Yes, people who will make me feel uncomfortable
Okay.
for the good reasons and the right reasons. And they would challenge me on stuff. They would call me and ask me, Kevin, are you okay? Kevin, what's happening in your life? You know, men who would call me and make an appointment with me and say, I need to have coffee with you, and look me in the face and ask me, what's been happening in your life for the past week? Are you still okay? Are you still good? So that helped a lot. And I am a father, but like I said right in the beginning, I am also a grandfather. So the relationship I had with my children were non-existent. Non-existent because I didn't know how to relate to them. I didn't know how to have a meaningful conversation with them. So I had to go back and try and pick up the pieces. And it's an ongoing journey for me to relate to them and speak to them and have meaningful conversations with them and to be part of their lives. I'm not there yet, but with the assistance and the help of men who speak into my life, I am going towards a direction, because now I have purpose in life. The very first thing is, I learned that I had to change my mindset. I have to have a tough mind. And the only way to have a tough mind is basically to study the word of the Lord, to study the Bible, you know, to change my mindset.
So renew your mind.
To renew my mind,
okay.
yes.
Yeah.
And by renewing my mind constantly, daily, and studying the Lord's word, you know, and allowing God-fearing men to speak into my life, the picture became more clearer to me that you get guidelines in the Bible how to be a man actually. And so today I find myself in a position where I walk with a lot of men. I walk alongside a lot of men. I have men walking with me, and then I am walking with other men. And all of a sudden I started identifying with men who is experiencing problems in their marriage. Once I sit down with them and we have a chat regarding the challenges they had in their marriage, if I change the focus to finding out how his relationship with his father.
Okay. The father wound.
The father wound, yes.
Okay.
Then I started picking up, but to fix a problem in a person's marriage, you have to fix the fatherhood. And it goes with the wife also.
The mother wounds also.
With the mother wound.
You can also get a mother wound even as a boy, but now we are more, because Father's Day, we are more concentrating on the fatherhood. Yes, so that it's clear. And that is true, Kev. And I share that thing because now, we're talking back now, you've got this fatherhood, you get married, now you are married, and now you have to become the father, and you've got these issues, and certain issues in our marriage also exist because of this particular thing, and certain things, and I relate to that. And the one thing that I would say, obviously, just to add on your side, just on my experiences, the things that I'm just doing differently now from basically, what I received. The nice thing, about my dad, the nice thing about it, he had love. There's one thing that you cannot doubt. He loved all of it, and I think that helps. That helps a child growing up. And I think, if you look at all the other things, because everybody's not perfect, there's certain good things that the dad does. There's certain things that obviously that affects you in terms of that, calling out that support. But I mean, he had love. He did the best whatever he could as a dad. You can't knock him. He did a great job in that sense. What he could, leave the stuff that he left with. So I think for me, what I learned, especially now, especially for me, my children are all still young. The oldest, is turning 6 this year. So. And the one thing that you try, and sometimes, and I always tell people, you don't have to see a good example to know the right things. You can also learn from something that is wrong. Yes. And you identify, listen, this is wrong. And I think that is sort of, for me also, as I've grown, in Christ, it's sort of the wisdom that God has given me. So at least, I can, what we talked about, that calling out your child, affirming them. I'm there now doing that role. But it started with me also, breaking that generational pattern, intentionally breaking that generational pattern, generational curse, because those are the things that are needed to breaking generational curse and certain patterns that you see. If I look at my father, my uncles and all of that, you see certain patterns, and then you start breaking those patterns. Affirming your children, spending more time with them, being that role, of a father in the house, and because. Also, especially for me as an African man, when you talk about that thing about marriage, they say identify, my mind needed to change because we are told, you're a husband, this is what you do, this is what a wife does. You don't cook, you don't clean, you don't do this. So you can just imagine, Kev, the Kev, because I've also had a loving mother, who took care of the home, did everything. So that's how I grew up. So now, I like what you said about renewing your mind. So I had to renew your mind, when you grew up with that cultural concept. And now, you get born again, you get married, and now you kind of, so you see with these battles. So it goes back to what you are saying. Now, I have issues, for example, in my marriage. It's not actually about my marriage. It's actually my own things and how you've been raised. So
how you grew up at home.
Yes, how you grew up at home and how culture is. So we've had to break a lot of those things, over the years. Break those perceptions. You come. When you come, it's just me and you here. I'll make you coffee. I'm not gonna say let's wait for my wife to come. I'll make you coffee. We'll have lunch, we'll wash the dishes, me and you will do it. So those paradigms shift, and I think it's those things that we pass on to the future generations, just to change. And I kind of establish, it's going to be different from family to family, what it looks like. And I think as a family, each family and each man needs to find what works for his household, and create a new culture going forward. And I think,
because your boys that you are raising currently, so 15 years, 20 years from now, they might be a father of a home. They might be a husband to a wife. So the way we treat them now, the way we teach them now,
and we treat their mothers.
And we teach them how to treat their mothers or their sisters in the house. That's the way they're going to treat their wife and their children one day. And one thing that's very important is moral authority. That's why we need to tell them what is morally allowed, what is morally what is right and what is wrong. We need to teach that
Teach
to
the
them.
morals in the home. Don't
in the
expect.
home.
Hence why we have all this corruption and everything else.
Yes.
Immorals. Because when you do something right in the world, it's
Yes.
like you get looked at funny.
Yes.
Because the corruption and immorality has become a norm. So I like what you say. So we need to teach it in the home. Okay?
So we first, as the father, we need to know what immorality is. To teach our children and say, listen, this is what we as a family stand for. All right? And we need to teach that. We need to impart that in our homes. Okay. We, as a community nowadays, expect that from the teachers at school. And that is not the place. It starts at home. We as the fathers, besides calling out our children's identity, we need to teach the moral values at home. And they will live with that for the rest of life. Because the only thing, there is a saying that goes that says, the only thing for evil to prevail is when good men do nothing. So that I live by that at this moment as why, and I make sure that when I see evil happening in front of me, I confront it. I call it out, and I confront it, and I address it, and I make sure when I walk away that the person understands what I stand for.
No, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And I wouldn't, that is very important, to teach the morals. And again, what you teach in your house has to be aligned to the word of God and biblical and to you. And we face such a difficult task, especially for our young children now currently, because they get exposed to a lot.
Exactly.
They get a lot. So you have to make sure you teach as best as possible in your home. Yes. The world is, like you say, there's always a teacher that is waiting on the outside, even when you are teaching. So that there's somebody wanting to do that. So we can only do our best. So I like that, Kev. So apart from calling out, calling out the children who they are, what they're supposed to be, affirming them, affirming them, the affirmation and all of that. But also, we have to teach the moral authority, But also, again, it starts with us as fathers, because I like what you said, because I first have to understand what is moral and what is immoral.
Yes.
And I have to also renew my mind and wash my mind in terms of that, because at the end of the day, none of us is perfect, and we will make mistakes along the line. But I guess, that is what a person is supposed to do. You fall, you pick yourself up, you move forward, you repent, you go forward. And the one thing I've also had to learn, Kev, is to actually say sorry to my children. Hey, because hey, there was something, man. There was something this one time. It was, when you come back, you stress with certain things from work, all these issues. Now, I'm busy. The children ask this, and I'm taking out of the children. Everybody now at home, my wife. But then I sit down there by myself. Then I realize these children have life to do everything. Yes. So I had to, the next day, to really say call them in individually, apologize, give them a hug and say I'm sorry, because that is the one thing that I think I fail to see if I look at my father, being able to say, so because now you then think as a man, because I'm running away from them to think as men, you can't say sorry, you are always right. But I think maybe if they hear me saying sorry, for example, to them, they know, okay, Daddy also makes mistakes. He also gets it wrong, because I'm also running away from them when they've done something wrong. You are right. They can't come at home to say it. They just run away. I can't tell Daddy, because Daddy's always right. He's always wrong. So I had to repent and get rid of that and really humble myself, to my wife, to my children, to say sorry, because I think it will start there.
And for men out there in general, so that's a problem. To apologize, to think that you as an adult need to apologize to your child, your 6-year-old child. It's a challenge, and it's a foreign language out there. But that it's exactly what you are saying, Zoe. You are basically teaching that 6-year-old, that 10-year-old, that as an adult, when you make a mistake, it's okay to apologize. There is the saying also that cowboys don't cry when it comes to men.
Yes, men don't cry.
And men don't cry. And there is a lie. So there is a lie. I cry, and when I cry, I don't care who sees me. Previously, I would feel ashamed, you know, because men don't cry.
Yeah, that's the thing also my wife had to take out of it, because sometimes even me, you know, when my boys come back crying,